How are you? We're happy to have you today.
The coffee has kicked in, so I apologize in advance.
Oh boy. No, no, don't apologize. This is going to be great fun.
No, it's going to be a hoot.
No pressure. Hi,
No.
everyone.
Well, we got everybody muted and we've got questions from the forum, from them. We've got our own burning questions for you. And
No
so
pun
we're just going
intended.
to jump. No, never. Um, we're going to jump right in if you're good to go.
Let's do it.
All right. Jess, you want to launch us off here with a couple questions?
Okay, right, yeah, let's do this. So we've got a question from Vesta. I'm sorry if I'm incorrect in pronouncing it.
Hi, Vesta.
Will we discover more about Lee's powers and how they potentially link to the firsts? Straight in there.
Yes. 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 I don't know how many hints that I can drop about there being so I have to add the caveat, potentially a third book. Um, but yes.
Oh yeah, we had a lot of questions and conversations kind of circling around, we've got some bad actors that are kind of in the background and still unknown. We've got some, is this friend or foe? There's a lot of things that could be explored still. And I wasn't personally ready to be done with this world or these characters, so that's great news that there
Yeah.
might be someday a third book.
So um it's interesting because I had a conversation with my editor. As a writer, I don't want to assume that the world and the stars will align in a way that will allow me to write and publish the next book, right? I'm going to do my best to get there, but I don't want to assume I'm going to get there. And it was a really interesting conversation to have with my editor about this book because I wanted, in some ways, for it to be like consecrated ground, where this story closes and there are tendrils here and some breadcrumbs that could lead to another book. But this, in and of itself, is a complete book, so that if there is never a sequel, everyone is somewhat satisfied.
Mhm.
Somewhat. Except for those of you who are always begging for more. Um, so having Incendiant, where either this book is 400,000 pages long, or or there are some things I can do in this book and make it really clear that there's more to the story and not leave it at a cliffhanger, but definitely leave it at a place where some undercurrents are unresolved. So, yes, in a perfect world, there will be a third book. Yes, I already have notes on the third book. Yes, I already have some plans for the third book and beyond. But yes, period.
Well, I think we're all pretty happy to hear that news. So, um, I have a question, puns aside. Um, burning it down is a bold move. Is that always where you were going to go?
Mm, yes. So, no. Yes, but no. Lee is a sleeper, in that, I mean, the series is called Joan of Crows. It's supposed to be about Joan. Um, but Lee, in her own way, which is becoming increasingly obvious in the story, and to folks reading it, Lee has a position and a place that is just as strong as Joan, but different. And I think we talked about this when when we chatted a while back about consecrated ground. We chatted, yeah, about how originally it was all Joan's point of view. It was Joan's story. And it was impossible to push Lee to the side. So that became an alternating POV story. And then the more we talk about Joan's journey, the more I was like, yeah, but there's got to be something here. And what is that? And finding out more about Lee is really what led to Incendiant and the role that she will play in the long run. And I hate to be a tease, but I love to
Wow.
be a tease. Uh,
Oh,
Wow.
and to have her have something in common with Elizaveta,
oh,
that's going
look.
places. So,
Jess. Jess is very happy to hear this news.
Elizaveta is another character who I thought was one thing and is turning out to be another.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I tend to talk about my characters as if they are external real people that just show up in my psyche and tell me what they want to do, as if all of it isn't in my brain. We'll talk about my twisted compartmentalization some other time. But Elizaveta is one where I thought she was one thing and she is rapidly becoming another. Not saying she's going to be a goody goody because she's not. And for I think some of you may have read her origin story in the Bywater Books anthology Soul Food Stories that came out last year, maybe the year before. Um, and it includes a story called Ravenous, and that is Elizaveta's origins. And I can't, coming from that aspect of her humanity, um, yeah, Jess, there's going to be more of her. You'll be fine.
Well, I know what I'm reading this afternoon.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So that does kind of lead into another question we got that maybe you're kind of hinting at starting with characters. It sounds like that's a really big piece of this for you. But Claire asked us on the form, do you design the world first and then drop your characters into it, or do you start with the characters and create a world for them?
It ebbs and flows. I wish I had a neat answer. There are, with this story, it really started with the characters. Um, but then, much like much like looking at a sketch, um, as it starts to take form and solidify, and as the colors start to come in, the background starts to come in. And I'm going to shift back and forth from the creative, awesome aspects to the on the ground, gritty craft aspects, which are not as sexy in some ways. Um, And the key between the two is, okay, you have this character that looks and acts a certain way, and you have this snapshot of their world, and that's the background. And then there's the line between that and craft, which is make it make sense. So all of all of the pieces of the world, then I have to back up from character and go, okay, how would this really work? How would this world how would the characters within this world actually achieve these things? And you can't just have a vampire who's a first of a guild and not have a guild. And if you've got a guild, then you've got to have a world where that guild makes sense. And you have to have dynamics within that world and pros and cons within that world and good and bad within that world. And all of those details have to kind of coalesce in a way that makes readers not throw the book at the wall. So I start with characters, and then I begin to fill in some of the world, and then I back up and really dig into the world building and the mechanics. And then when that gets too dry, I have to go, okay, now filter this back through the character again, and I'm switching back and forth between those layers.
I feel very sorry. Jess, did you want
No, no, I was just going to make a comment that it's like the best tasting lasagna ever.
to? All right.
Yes. Yes, because it even though you have all of these amazing ingredients, lasagna is one of my favorite dishes. Even though you have all of these amazing ingredients, if you don't get it right, you end up with slop on your plate. You don't get like the beautiful layered, right? And I mean, it's still delicious, don't get me wrong. This could get really weird. So let's move on to the next question.
Well, hang on. I'm feeling very justified because in our book club part, I was talking about how I feel like one of the things I love about your books is that you hit both of those pieces where, I understand the world and the way that the world impacts the character, but then I understand the character's internal experience so well that I understand both how the world's impacting them and how they're impacting the world. And the fact that you come at it from both of those sides means I get almost like a more complete emotional experience of the story than one where you're staying really deep in the character and maybe not getting as much of an outside view. And I really enjoy having both. So that was really satisfying to hear because I can see it when I read it. And then, you talking about how you put it together really aligns with the experience I'm having of the book. So I'd say you're doing a pretty good job.
Thank you. I'm very happy to hear that it lands. I'm very, very happy to hear that it lands.
Yeah. Claire also just wanted to know, like what your process for writing speculative fiction is. And then we had another question. It kind of, I feel like, goes with that from Lorraine. For aspiring writers, what your publishing process was like. So I guess maybe we've got a lot of interest in your process from start to finish, as much as you want to dig into that.
I'm going to break those down into two separate questions, because my process and
The process.
publishing turned out to be two completely different journeys, and I am very lucky that I have made any progress with them being in sync with one another.
All right.
I will talk about not necessarily this book, but I'm gonna talk about how I'm crafting what I'm working on right now. And I'm going to be a tease again and not tell you much about it because I'm still working some things out. And then for those of you who follow me on social media, I got a new idea this week that is also trying to take up space in my brain, which is not welcome because I'm not ready for it. I start by turning off that voice that says speculative fiction needs to be like this, whatever that definition is. And I try to stay true to whatever gel of an idea, like, or whatever gem, thank you, of an idea like that. That one thing that makes me go, oh wow, that would be really cool. And I try to hold on to that as long as I can until I can flesh it out before I back up and go, okay, is this really speculative fiction? Is this really something that could work? Is this something that that other folks would find interesting? Um, and I'm really holding tight to that idea with this story that I'm working on. With Incendiant, it was less of a concern because I knew folks dug Consecrated Ground. And Consecrated Ground was my first novel. So, going back to the initial stages of that, it was, I'm going to write a story and see if I can get it published. And I got really lucky, and I'll get to that in a minute. So I start with, here's this idea that I have, and what I'm doing in my, I often say that every novel is different in that the machine that I build to build the book is different for each story that I tell. What I'm doing right now is I am clutching all of the ideas in my little notebook for the one that I'm working on, and getting that into a draft. And right now I'm trying to decide if it's science fiction or fantasy, which is a really fun question to ask. So that's about the sort of the germination of things, and how ideas become bigger stories. Um, Publication for me was a very weird journey, and it was not the typical journey that writers talk about, which is I wrote a thing, I submitted it, it was accepted, right? I wrote a thing, I submitted it, and it was rejected X number of times until I found a place that was willing to publish it and I worked with them. Or I wrote a thing, or I wrote several things, and I pitched X number of agents until one of them decided to work with me, and then we, went on that journey together. Um, I met my publisher by being introduced to them at a convention. They rejected my first novel. They accepted my second one. I mean, it was, and that's a gross oversimplification, but it was already an anomaly in that um, my pitch was in true Virginia Black fashion over a Manhattan in a bar. Um, where my publisher said, "Tell me about the story you're working on," and I talked about the story and was asked to send some pages. And then that first novel was A, not very good, and B, fell apart in revision. The more I worked on it to make it better, the more it collapsed. I shelved it. But the rejection letter that I received from Bywater Books was probably the most polite, encouraging rejection I have ever experienced in my entire life. There are good things here. We think it needs some work. It's not for us. Some other folks might be interested. Best of luck. If you work on it and send it back to us, we would be happy to take a look. Gee, thanks. Right? The novel fell apart. I got a different idea. I worked on that idea. I drafted that book. And then I thought they were really cool. They probably won't want it, but I'm going to give them first glance at it because they were really nice to me. I sent Consecrated Ground to Bywater Books, and they said, yeah, we want this one. So publishing for me was not the typical journey. Now, I have submitted short stories to anthologies. I have been very lucky in that I have been accepted more than rejected. Um, I work really hard on craft, on always improving something each time I write. With each piece, there are some stories where I have picked one particular element where I tried to make that element stronger than it had been in previous works. There are other stories where I'm just trying to level up all around. Um, that I like being a constantly learning, constantly adapting writer, and I hope that comes through. I hope that while folks enjoy all of my stories, that each one is just a little bit better than the last.
Wow, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, me and Jane. We'll
Okay,
clap.
I'm getting ranty over here. I told you the coffee's kicking in.
No, I thought it was great. I also just wanted to point out that when we were talking about Elizabetta, I had a message from Claire saying that yay, another Elizabetta fan here. So we
Thanks,
should get a
Claire.
little
I
should
appreciate
get a
that.
little fan club going for that.
Wait, is that the Claire Ashton? Are you kidding me?
That is
That
Oh my
is
God. Oh, hi.
the the Claire Ashton.
The Claire Ashton? Okay.
Yeah.
Pressure.
I've got some questions in the chat. I've got a question here from Vesta, who would like to know more about the witches and why are they so reticent to help Joan or indeed the people outside of Portland City?
Oh, we're talking about the High Coven.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the High Coven? Um, polite language, polite language. I
Nah.
No, go for it. If
um
to get the beeper out, she's got it.
she's got the beeper out. Okay, I want to talk for a minute about this thing. I'm going to introduce a concept that some of you may be familiar with, but some people may not. And this concept is um, lesbian processing. Okay. Um, if any of you have ever been involved in a group that needs to hash out all of the discussion elements where everyone is given supposedly equal weight, but there's always a handful that think their views are more important than the others. Um, where everyone is heard and they're all trying to work towards consensus, and this takes forever. And it never actually resolves the thing that you want to resolve, but everyone feels like they got to say their piece, but nothing actually happens. That is the Portland High Coven. And I needed I needed to have that kind of an element where they have a certain amount of power. And this is indeed, this ties back into if I could write a 400,000 word book and get it published, you would know this already. But there are only so many elements that I could bring into each of these individual novels. And the Portland High Coven keeps getting shorted because they're boring. And I need to make them more exciting, and I will. We've got a touch of that coming. But and it's hinted at when they show up again and tell Joan to knock it off. When Joan is off doing Joan things. Um, so the that is what they are meant to represent from a we're the big city, we're the ones who determine how witches are going to work within this region. You need to defer to us, and you don't get to know how we do things. This is not a democracy. That is what they are meant to represent. That is what they are. Um, we get to do some fun things with them coming up. I do not feel bad at all about making some of them bad guys. Not at all. Not even a little bit. Um, and that is mostly to demonstrate that the world is not black and white. It is in shades of gray. Um, uh, well, that's not true. There are extremes of black and white, but that mostly there are shades of gray. And we'll get to do a lot of that with the Portland High Coven. I can't answer the question much without getting into spoilers and future plot points, but just know that it's coming. I promise, Vesta.
Awesome. Thank you.
You heard it here. Count
You
on it.
did. You heard it here first.
Okay, and
Um,
was there another question that I missed in there?
uh, not yet.
Okay, good.
I've got a message in the chat here from Hells. Um, First part of the question, have you always been drawn to the sci-fi supernatural fantasy? And although it's not this book, but inquiring minds do want to know, are you planning on writing any more sci-fi books in the near future as they loved No Shelter But the Stars?
I'm currently working on my next sci-fi standalone novel. You're gonna have to wait for the third book in this series. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm the worst. I know. Arms raised, utter disgust. Hurry up and write the book already. Um, Part of that is because our Warbinder needs to sit for a little while. Joan's got a couple things to figure out. And also I need to figure out a way to keep Fiona from taking over the book. I'm sorry. Um, I have loved science fiction since I was how do you say we bairn? How do you say that word? Does anyone know how to say that word? Yeah. I was raised in the Church of Sci-Fi. I was actually recently drafting some notes about this. Before Star Wars, before I even knew that I wanted to be some sort of Dyke Han Solo. I grew up watching a lot of what we now call bad sci-fi, right? Saturday matinees, giant ants, giant beasties, War of the Worlds, the classic War of the Worlds. So me and my tiny little ghetto house with my tiny little black and white television, yes, I am that old. I watched a lot of sci-fi. So that is my first love. And No Shelter But the Stars came to be because there was a story I was looking for and I couldn't find it. So I wrote it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist out there. I'm saying I had not found it. I wanted spaceships and hot chicks with weapons, and fine, let's give one of them a sword and a gun. And there needs to be creepy crawly beasties, and there needs to be space fights. And oh my God, they really, really have a lot. And I could not find that. So I wrote No Shelter But the Stars. So the fact that my first novel was actually a paranormal urban fantasy kind of book was shocking to me because I was going to write sci-fi. That's what I do. I have the reason I have this background is because the stacks of science fiction behind me are high and messy and will probably fall over. So, yes, there will be science fiction. There will always be science fiction. I have notes for probably at least two or three different science fiction novels. Um, and then, like I said, another idea just came to me this week, and it feels like fantasy, but if there isn't a laser or a spaceship in there, I don't know who I am anymore. We'll see. So yeah, the next novel is a sci-fi standalone. Um, and then a couple novels down the road is probably yet another. And I really want to figure out how to get back into writing more short stories. I kind of exhausted um my bin, my filing cabinet, my wherever I stash things. All of my short stories, I managed to get them out. I have another one called Sola that's coming out next month in Sinister Wisdom, for those of you who are familiar with Sinister Wisdom. Um, so more sci-fi to come, absolutely, with some actively in progress.
On that note, I had quite a few comments as you were talking about this one.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, we've got a lot of feelings about this. I've got somebody who loved No Shelter But the Stars and wants even more physics in it. I assume like world building and like how it works. Does it at least have a little bit of Star Trek in it? The new book. I've been waiting for this since forever from somebody who's capable of convincing storytelling.
Thank you.
Um, and then I've got another one that just says standalone, not more Shelter in the Stars universe. Because
You know, so
I swear there's more room there.
it is exactly like consecrated ground in that there are elements there that if I want to go back, there is a huge universe there that I can explore. And I want to talk about, I'm just going to come back to this because I need people to know that I'm not an idiot and I do have a brain in my head about the deeper hard sci-fi elements that could exist in my stories. And most of the time I end up erring on the side of sacrificing the hard sci-fi, the physics, the mechanics of it all in order to give the romantic element the space that it deserves, because I don't just write science fiction. I write science fiction romance. I don't just write paranormal or urban fantasy. It's paranormal romance, urban fantasy romance. And I have tried more than once to make, okay, this is just a romance that lives here, except I can't. It has to have more of the other thing. Okay, fine. Then I'm just going to do the other thing, and the romance will be like a B plot or a C plot. I can't do that either. So I'm in this space, which will probably in the long run limit my career and limit the size of my audience, where I am giving equal time, equal space to both of those things. And sometimes that means that the science aspects of science fiction, the world building aspects of urban fantasy don't get the the amount of focus that they might get in other stories, because I'm also trying to do it in 75 to 90,000 words. If I get to the point where longer stories work and the market will bear it, then maybe we'll get into that. But that's the sacrifice that I'm making right now, and I just want to say, even though nobody probably cares about this but me, that I'm aware of those limitations and the ways that some of the story, I don't want to say fall short, but don't include all of those elements, and it is a conscious choice based on the things that I just mentioned. And
Awesome.
rant.
Very insightful, and I appreciate it. I think I can see that reflected in your books that you do give it that, and I think it keeps the romantic element believable because if you did make it that like B story, C story. It's harder sometimes to see that piece, and I like it. I think you have an audience for it. So
It's one of the, and I try not to read reviews, or I try to have other people read the reviews and tell me so that I don't go down the pit of the 1 and 2 star reviews. Which, I don't understand why I focus on those more than the ones that are saying, "Hey, good job." But that's what I do. And one of the most severe criticisms, I think, of No Shelter But the Stars is that some of the political elements tie up a little too neatly. And it's a fair criticism, but if I started dealing with some of the aspects that folks mentioned, that's another 50 to 60,000 words. And uh it was a concession that I made consciously. So thanks for the rest of you for giving me for it.
Um, I have like a whole bunch.
Do it.
Um, Before I do, I'm mindful of the time. Have you got any more time for a few more questions, Virginia?
I do.
Um, for everyone else, we know that time is a constraint, so if you need to leave, don't worry, this will be on YouTube so you can catch up later, but if not, we'll go straight back into it.
Awesome.
Um, So I've got a comment slash question about the hard sci-fi from Rach. There tend to be a lot of white dudes screaming about minor real-world physics inaccuracies. Is that something that worries you about writing more of that, or is she unbothered slash they're not her audience anyway?
Um, I hmm, I'm just gonna quote Lena Luthor. I don't think about you when I'm doing it. Um, uh, do I worry about that? I mean, I do, but not from the perspective of those bros who are always going to be mad about something. Um, I'm a sci-fi reader. I'm a voracious reader, and I read a shit ton of stuff. Um, so I think about when I'm reading a book, what, when we go into the depth of certain things. All right, so this could get into the weeds, and I don't necessarily want to do this, but there are times when I want to jump into a David Weber book. David Weber, correct me if I'm wrong, wrote the Honor Harrington series. Um, and I read all the Honor Harrington books. That's not true. I read them until I started writing, and then I got too busy. But before that, I read probably, I don't know, 10 or 12 of them. And some folks are really into the hard sci-fi elements. I can take them or leave them. I think I'm much more interested in characters and journey, character development, and sometimes the world building is super cool. I was just reading Seth Dickinson's The Traitor Baru Cormorant, I think is what it's called. And the world building is amazing. Um, that's more fantasy, I suppose. I would say um, that I don't necessarily worry about it. To get back to the damn question, I don't necessarily worry about it when I'm writing. Um, I do want to add some of those elements. Like with each book, I talked about, trying to get better with each book. Um, with the book that I'm working on right now, I'm thinking about that a lot because I want it to be as immersive as possible for the reader. Like, I want you to forget you're reading a book and you are in the story. And if that means I need to go harder into some of the mechanics of why certain elements of the story work, then that's the work that I've got to do, and I got to figure that out. But it is something that I'm aware of, and I try not to let it sink into the draft stage, right? This is the I want to get all the story down on paper. Then the next stage is, okay, make it make sense to someone else. Then it's, let me get back into this and find out all of the mechanics of how this should work. And I want to get better at that. Um, but that's a matter of me wanting to tell a better story, not me wanting to satisfy a certain subset of audience who may or may not want to read my kind of story to begin with. Just in our community, there are folks who, I'm going to go back to an inspiration of mine, Daughters of a Coral Dawn by Catherine V. Forrest, which is one of the first lesbian sci-fi books, if not the first lesbian sci-fi book I ever read. Um, and that book is interesting because it's kind of a bit of both. The first half of the book is more hard sci-fi in some ways, and the second half of the book is more romance. So some people love that book, some people don't. Some people love aspects of either part of that book and not the other. I mean, I don't know if she thought about that when she was reading it or when she was writing it. I don't necessarily think about that particular audience when I'm drafting.
I
Okay, you're nodding, which means I answered the question. Okay,
You
good.
did. You did. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think there's an audience for whatever story you're trying to tell. And I think it's important to tell the part that's interesting to you because I think it shows in your writing if you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Oh, I'm writing a sci-fi, I have to include this.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a hard right or and just ask a question that we got that's a little bit more fun. We're going to wrap it up here. Which of your characters is most like you, and which one is most unlike you?
Oh, um, I I don't think I'm. Oh, my subconscious just answered this question in a way I don't like. I don't see myself in any of my characters, and I don't think I have much in common with any of them. Um, I will say that Lee might be Lee is dealing with some issues that in some ways I recently recognized, okay, actually that might have come from some things that I've been trying to figure out. Um, Joan and I have nothing in common except bitter rage when we have bitter rage. Um, but the character that I think is probably most like me is Bartholomew. And I
Yes,
don't like the answer.
Bartholomew is awesome.
I do not like that answer at all.
Oh, that's great.
Right?
Uh,
Like, okay.
all
I think
right.
that is the perfect,
Like
perfect
Bartholomew is the
way.
most like, can't we, I mean, like, not can't we all just get along, but like, listen, can everybody just stop being a dick for 5 minutes so that we can figure this out? Like, it is, which now means I need to go get a pair of aviators, but, so be it.
Definitely. I think that is the perfect way to end our event. Sorry for those that we didn't get around to asking your questions. You'll have to come back when we have her again. That's all.
Yeah, you all know where to find me. You know where to find me on the socials. You know where I am lurking at the conferences. I will ask, but I may even see some like I have to remind folks about the Olivia cruise in April with Sapphire Books. If any of you show up there, ask me everything, and I will buy you a drink. But yeah, if you like the story, please, I'm urging folks to get out there and drop a review if you're up for it, or leave a rating if you're not. I'd really appreciate it.
Awesome. And
Awesome.
can you give us the date for the audiobook? I know I saw the pre-release, but I wasn't sure if we've got a date.
Oh my gosh, I'm a terrible person. I don't necessarily have that date. I think, hold please, she said, hoping she is not a liar. Do I have a date? Do. It looks like sometime in November, mid-November.
All right. Um,
Okay, brilliant.
Great to see everyone.
And last, sorry, Jade, go ahead.
no, Audible says November 18th. I looked it up.
Oh, okay. Well, then November 18th.
All right,
Um,
Jess, you want to close us out?
sure, we'll do it. Last question, I think, hopefully. Um, where can we find you on social media or whatever?
I'm spending probably most of my time on Instagram and Blue Sky. I still check Twitter and I refuse to call it the other thing. I still check Twitter, I still check Facebook, but I have noticed on both of them that my posts aren't showing up for folks. But you can always just check my profile and see what's going on and give me a shout there if you have other questions or if you just want to say hi. But yeah, I'm on all of these, she said, pointing upward, and come find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you,
me. It's always good to
everyone,
see
for
you.
joining us. Please keep an eye on our socials because our next event is going to be on the 11th of October for Discovering Nicola with the Claire Ashton. So
What?
keep your eyes peeled. And thank you so much, everyone, and Virginia, for joining us today.
Great to see you all.